I think we can go ahead and get started. I see the numbers are going up some. And thanks, Carol, for that great music. And thanks, everyone, for sending in your location via the chat. So we'll get started today. We have a great team from the Intermacs Data Warehouse located in Birmingham, Alabama. We have Dr. Rama on. He's the Director of Programming from the Intermacs DCC. We have Dr. Brandon Singletary. He's also part of the programming and data analytics team. We have Maceo Cleget, who many of y'all communicate with. He's integral part of getting those reports out and answering questions from the Intermacs DCC. We have John Pennington, who also has his hands in a lot of things, helps with the data sets, research, programming the database, and questions. So, and I did not see Dr. Cantor. Maybe he logged on later. Okay, great. And then we have Dr. Ron Cantor, as many of you know, as the Director of Reporting for the Intermacs DCC. And he also helps with the research, puts his hands in the reporting, and is a master of the reports for Intermacs. So thank you, UAB, for taking the time today to join us for this webinar. So I just want to welcome everyone, and thanks again for joining today and for taking the time out from your busy day today. We have Ryan and Rama are going to go over the dashboard, and they will also tell you some new and exciting details that we're adding to the dashboard, and kind of do an overview of some scenarios. And then we have this wonderful Kaplan-Meier analytical tool, which Dr. Cantor is very excited about and very proud of, and he should be. It's a great tool, and he's going to go and review some scenarios for utilizing that analytical tool. I also want everyone to know that we have a webinar next Wednesday, the user group webinar, and we will focus on the new updated adverse events for that webinar. And we will have 2 of our task force members available on that webinar to answer some of the in-depth clinical questions or justification for the updated adverse events. So please join next week also if you can. Want everyone to know we're still doing our COVID-19 protocol. You can still do televisits. Quality of life surveys may be done over the phone. You can mail those, although I say this all the time. I know it's really difficult to get those mailed out, but more difficult for the patient to mail them back in. If your follow-up visits are done outside of the visit window, just please enter the last date of the follow-up date visit into the database. And you have an extra 30 days after the follow-up due date to enter the data for the COVID-19 exception. So I think, Rama, you can go ahead and start. Well, what we'll do, kind of the format today, we're going to have Rama go over the dashboard, and then we can have questions after that, and then we're going to move on to the Kaplan-Meier that Dr. Cantor will review, and we'll have questions after that session also. So Rama, if you would like, I'll stop sharing and let you go on.
Sure. Thanks, Catherine. Thanks, Lat. Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. So we're here to talk about the current dashboard and the Kaplan-Meier, and then show some of the new features that are coming up in both the tools. So currently I want to first talk about the dashboard. I hope like everybody got a chance to look at the dashboard. If not, so we'll look at the current version and then talk about some of the new features that are coming up in the Intermacs dashboard. So Intermacs dashboard right now lives, it's on the main page. So if you, once you log into Intermacs, it's added, there's an icon right here to get to it. So I would just click on this, and then it's available for all users at the site. So click on this, and then once I click the I agree button, it will show the dashboard, load the dashboard here. Just a second. It should load up again. All right, here. So you'll see a page. So this is, again, a de-identified hospital, so that there's no PHI in this demo. So the dashboard overall, the layout looks like this. So the first tab shows the reported events from my hospital. So it shows so this is to give a quick accounting of what are the things happening at my hospital. So the number of active patients, number of new patients, and there's an icon here that shows what this calculation or formula is. So for the new patient is the total count of patients with first Intermacs device implanted at this site. So wherever we have any calculations, we added icons like this. So we show active patients, new patients, implants, the number of bleeding, infection, neurotransplant, and death events entered at each quarter at my site. So I can see that and get a quick idea of the data entry at my site. So that is the purpose of this display. And the data for this is updated nightly. So now if we go on to the second display, which is the patient characteristics. So this has a little bit more information. This one now has all these filters at the top where we can filter everything that is displayed down below. We can filter based on, and we can zoom in and then just get the information by applying these filters on all of these displays. So here, for example, if I want to see for the age groups, so for 19 to 39 year, so, and here's the legend for hospital X. So my hospital is blue and the Intermacs, overall Intermacs is gray. So this shows that at my site in 2021 Q1, there were 15% were from 19 to 39 years, whereas in overall Intermacs, there were 13%. And similarly, we can see the numbers for others. So this shows an interactive chart, and then this pop-up here shows the summary of what that bar is representing. So we have this display about each of these filters, patient characteristics here. So we have age groups, gender, race, and so on. So all the different types of filters we have a display for each of those in this. And if we look at the device strategy, I see we notice that my site is increasingly doing destination therapy. So in 2021 Q1, we did 85% destination therapy patients, whereas in Q2 it went up to 92. In 2021 Q3, it went up to 100%. So I can see and notice trends like this. So that is the patient characteristics tab. Now the next three tabs are actually about the adverse events. So now I can see the mortality and then see the mortality calculation for my site. So now if so for example, 30-day mortality patient percentage. So we can see that 30-day mortality patient percentage is 7.7 in first 2 quarters. It went up slightly at 11% to 11% in Q3. And then 2021 Q4 is still, I think that this data is still getting reconciled. So it is currently 0. So now we can compare that with overall Intermacs. So we can see that the percentage for Intermacs is almost similar here, whereas the second quarter, it's slightly lower, and then it's even lower in the third quarter. So we get a quick view and a quick comparison of mortality percentage at my hospital versus Intermacs. And here is a chart that summarizes that same information. And this is also interactive. So we show the details and the percentages at each of these time points. Similarly, we also have 30-day infection, which is a similar table and a chart display. And we also have 30-day stroke, which is also a table and a chart. Now, if we want to see to see how these filters work, we saw in the patient characteristics that my site is doing more of destination therapy. So if you want to apply, so here are the percentages for mortality percentage for stroke. So it is very high in 2021 quarter one, whereas it's almost zero in these 3 quarters. So now I want to see what about just DT destination therapy patients. So if you want to apply that filter, I'll deselect all, and then I'll just select DT patients. So with that, now it shows that for DT patients, the stroke rate is 9.1%. And I can again go back, and the same filter will apply. Once I apply it, it'll apply for all the tabs. So I can go back to infection. I can see the percentages there, and similarly to I can go back to mortality also. So those are the adverse events. Now the last 2 sections here are about metrics. So we calculate length of stay, and in this first display, we are showing the length of stay for Hospital X versus Intermacs, and this is by hospital. So how does my so if we see the median at my hospital is 20.5, and again this is just for DT patients. If I want to see for all patients, then I reapply this all filter. So we see that the median is 19, 22, and 23.5 across 3 quarters. Whereas for Intermacs, overall Intermacs, it is almost similar. So I can get a quick, in this display, I can get a quick comparison between my site versus overall Intermacs. And here's the chart representing the same numbers of median. Now, the last one is actually more towards benchmarking, where I can see my site compared to all the other sites in Intermacs. Where does my site stand when compared to other sites in Intermacs? So this shows the different distribution of length of stay, like again, median length of stay across all of Intermacs. So my site is here, length of stay is 21.5, whereas the distribution is for the other sites is at the upper whisker here is 36.5, lower is 9.2. So sort of we can see the range of different things for length of stay at different sites. So this is a combined across all four quarters, and this display here is a distribution that is showing by quarter. So that is a quick overview of the dashboard that we have currently. Now we are very excited to launch this and to provide a really good summary of the data entered from the hospitals. So, and this is a evolving process. This is version 1, and we are working on publishing new versions. So right now we have one version that is actually currently in development. So I'll let Braden present, and he's driving the development on that. So let me stop sharing and I'll let him present about the new features that are coming up in the dashboard.
Thank you, Rama.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Thanks, Rama. So after receiving some of the initial feedback, as well as based off of some of our initial specs that we wanted to build out for this dashboard for Intermacs, we've continued to make some behind the scenes modifications to improve functionality, but also improve both the aesthetics as well as the additional adverse events and metric benchmarking exhibits that we want to display here. So some of the way that the function will work will be exactly the same. However, it might look just slightly different in order to achieve some of the additional exhibits that we wanted to add to the visualizations here. So your main landing page here will look essentially exactly the same, just a little bit of different organization on the tool tab buttons. You'll have the reported events and patient characteristics. One of the main things we've added for this next version is the addition of the site volume filter. Again, this will apply across all of your outcomes and characteristics visualizations. And so we added this at the request of the Intermacs group. And then additionally, we've added some new adverse event tabs. So in addition to mortality, stroke, and major infection, we are adding readmissions, as well as device malfunction and pump thrombosis, severe device malfunction and pump thrombosis, GI bleed, and pulmonary infection. So these will operate in the same capacity, the same similar visualizations that you had for the previous adverse events, just increasing the amount of exhibits that you have at your fingertips here. Also, we have added an additional metric to our metrics and benchmarking outcomes, that being ICU days, both again, similar to length of stay, looking at the patient level, as well as benchmarking to other Intermacs hospitals. So this release will be coming out very soon. We're shooting for the end of this month, beginning of next month. We are just fine tuning some of the last few buttons and options and those sorts of things, and then going through a quick QA process, and then you should see that live on your end. And that's it for the new exhibits and my demo. Hand it back over to Ron.
Awesome. Thanks, Brandon. Thanks a lot. It's very glad to see all those new improvements. And again, during the AQO meeting, I think the new filter, which is the site volume, was one of the biggest requests we received from many users. So we're happy to add that. So mainly we're adding new navigation, new filters, and then as Brandon showed, new metrics, and then also several new AE tabs for displays. So we look at the usage statistics for the dashboard. So until now, we have seen that around 150 hospitals were looked at the dashboard at least once. And when we see that the number of hospitals that looked at dashboard at least 3 times, it's 101. So it looks like the dashboard is being used pretty regularly, which we're very happy about. We recently launched a survey which will look, so when you open the dashboard, you'll see a pop-up right here in this corner. And then, and this survey really helps us to understand what are the priorities of the dashboard, and then what new features you would like to see in future versions. So please, if you take, it should not takes approximately only 5 minutes. So it would be really helpful if you could respond to the survey and provide us with information. And this is designed for taking only once. So once you take it, you can just ignore that button and then just close that pop-up. So that is the survey that will be there until March, end of March. And then it will be taken down and we'll look at the responses. So when you get a chance, it will be great if you can respond to that survey. Next, we wanted to talk about the Kaplan-Meier tool. For that, turn it over to Ryan.
Yeah, and thanks again, Rama. And thanks, Ryan. Look forward to your presentation and your review of the Kaplan-Meier tool. I think just for, it'll just be best organizational wise if we'll just do the questions at the end of Ryan's review. Thanks.
Okay, and I should be pretty quick here. Let me share my screen. So this is like Rama showed, this is a tool that is live in the system, and we're going to be looking at hospital X's data. Really, I look at this ability to do time to event analysis in the system as an integral part of what our dashboarding is. It's like a complementary thing. It uses slightly different technology for how it does the analysis than the actual dashboard. So we haven't been able to make it like a seamless experience yet, but we do want to integrate that component where you're just going to one set of tools there. But in the meantime, you just go to reports here and then click on this outcome analytics. And you have to agree that you're not going to use this for research that's just internal QI type stuff. So the origin of this tool really came out of the QA reports and minor data requests for doing new and different type of time to event analysis with user specified entry. And so all these types of exhibits that you can make from this have been from real questions we've gotten over the years. And if you don't select anything, you just say, I want a single cohort at my site, and I want to look at the mortality. So time to event using the accurate statistical method for the type of longitudinal data that Intermacs collects. And go down to the bottom and say, generate the curve. Almost instantaneously, it's calculating this time to event curve for how well patients are surviving on a device at Hospital X. So this is similar to the curves in the QA report, but you have so many more options here. So you can dive into one particular category, like maybe we want to see outcomes for a much more specified group. Like maybe we just want to look at younger patients, or we'll just do the youngest patient group, continuous flow, LVADs only. Maybe that's what you're curious about, the outcome at your site with this methodology. So you make that selection and instantaneously you have the result. Again, you can do more than mortality. You could look at transplant, infection, device-related infection, GI bleeding, or stroke. So let's say we want to see what stroke is in these younger continuous flow LVAD patients. Here it is. I don't know if you can see, but that kind of jumped up a little bit. So now we change the outcome to stroke. So that's exploring data when it comes to a single cohort at your site. You could also explore two cohorts at your site. So see, when I selected this other selection came over here. So let me clear out these ones. So I'm just going to select something randomly, LVAD versus BIVAD at the site, and go back to mortality. So as expected, patients that receive a LVAD are surviving longer there. But you can imagine drilling down into really any type of comparison using these characteristics. So you could explore different subgroups at your hospital. But not only that, you also have date ranges here between the two cohorts. And here's where you could potentially look at trends at your hospital over time. So I'm at Hospital X. Let's say I go back to 2010 to 12/31/2015. I'm just kind of making up some dates there, and I'll pick up cohort 2 starting in 2016, and then this will just default to the end date of the latest data poll, which right now is 11/30/2021 for the most recent data. And let's look at device-related infection from 7 or so years, and then the 5-year prior to that. Let's make sure I haven't selected anything else here. Okay, great. Okay, so you can see the more recent cohort, less device-related infection, not quite reaching statistical significance there, but definitely an upward trend. Final kind of use case here, and then I'll wrap it up. You can also compare a site at your cohort with the equivalent Intermacs cohort. So this is the basic style of the the QA reports. So here I've changed the outcome to freedom from transplant. So let's see if patients at this site are getting transplanted, and maybe let's just look at the bridge to transplant. We'll limit it to bridge to transplant listed patients. So we'll see, is this site getting listed patients transplanted as much as Intermacs? Now, I don't know that that's a real useful question, but if it was, here it is. So the Intermacs curve is in blue, the site curve is in orange, and they're pretty much overlapping. So that's the current functionality. Some things we plan to roll out in future iterations of this. We think this is great, but just like the QA reports have a little table underneath that give explicit output of what the estimates are. We're going to add that, so it'll be really easy for you to pull out the 1 year or the 2 year or the 5 year estimates and their confidence intervals if you want to report that back. We also want to, I think these are 95% confidence intervals. The 70% confidence intervals make it a little bit easier to interpret. So we might add that. And then either now or email, or we'll be developing questions. I'm very interested in knowing other top level characteristics that would make this more useful, or that you're already using in any tracking you're doing at your site, that this tool would allow you to replicate things you're already tracking or want to use this tool for. And in addition to characteristic filters, are there other outcomes of interest here? Because now that we have the framework for this, really knowing, minor tweaks on this could be implemented that would really make it more useful. So, when it comes down to questions, I'm happy to answer any questions, or, click on any buttons here if anybody wants to see anything. So I'll turn this back over to Rama and Catherine.
Okay, thanks, Ron. Thanks you very much. I do have a question regarding the dashboard and the Kaplan-Meier tool. Which one would y'all suggest? And this is really for those on the call. Let's say a site would like to see driveline infection rate percentages. Could that be calculated utilizing the dashboard and or the Kaplan-Meier?
Sure, I'm happy to take a quick stab at this, and then we can get feedback from the whole team. So I think both tools answer those questions in slightly different ways. What the dashboard tool is going to be really useful for is really current data and seeing the trends in that driveline infection in a analytically kind of focused way to get it. You'll get patient percent and you'll get the rate. And so the rate will be over, I can't remember if it's 6 months or something like that. So for a really near-term outcome and a really easy to interpret result that is trending over time, I'd say definitely go to the dashboard. One of the challenges with longer term follow-up, like if you want something over a year or 2 years, the amount of follow-up each patient experiences is really important. So like some patients might have only been followed for 3 months in the system, or some patients might have been on a VAD for 6 months, but then got a transplant, so then they're not at risk for having whatever the adverse event is afterwards. So that's a challenging analysis when you start extending that follow-up time with that longitudinal analysis, and that time to event methodology handles that in a statistically appropriate way. And so that's where longer term outcomes, the Kaplan-Meier tool is going to offer a better solution to that. And like we said, I think it's a little bit maybe hard to interpret the curves themselves, but when we put the actual percentages on the table underneath it, you'll be able to go and pull out the 2 year freedom from adverse event X from that table. So hope that wasn't too information. I'm happy to expand on any of that you guys are interested in hearing about.
No, great, Ron. Thank you. It's a great answer, and I appreciate the details. So a housekeeping note, for any questions, please enter them in the Q&A box and not the chat. So we'll go ahead. If there's anything else you'd like to add, the UAB team, before I dive into our questions.
Yeah, Catherine, just one thing on the usage for Kaplan-Meier. So again, similar to dashboard, we look at the usage pretty closely. So it looks like there are at least 53 hospitals that use the Kaplan-Meier tool at least once, and then more than 3 times is 18. And then the number of unique hospitals that actually generated the Kaplan-Meier is 24. And we have like close to 173 Kaplan-Meier generated until now from the last couple of months. And then we saw that the highest number of Kaplan-Meier generated by a single hospital is 33, which is actually great. It's really good. We'll have to look at it. And just one final note, we really want to hear from you. Like if there are any scenarios that you're using the dashboard or the Kaplan-Meier tool for, that this could be for quality improvement or for any clinical scenarios. We'd really love to hear those scenarios from you. So let us know so that we can share that, or we can find out a way, arrange a way to share that in an upcoming webinar so that it can be more interactive. So that's what I have, Catherine. Thank you. Back to
Yeah,
you.
great, Rama. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again because I want to make sure that everyone has access to the best way to contact. You may contact myself, Catherine Holyfield. It's kholyfield@sts.org. You can also contact Patricia Potter. And then we have an email, the Intermacs FAQ@sts.org for operational questions also. I do want to go ahead and start. I'm going to go ahead and review some of the questions that we have that have come in. The first question is, key dates such as adverse event dates are missing from the live data download spreadsheets, even though the date has been entered in Intermacs and validated. Why is this happening, and is there a solution coming?
Yeah. So Catherine, I can take that question.
Okay.
Yeah. So just while during this call, I checked a few like bleeding, infection, and all of them. So those forms, at least, they seem to have the dates. But if you let us know like which dates they are, or which live data download reports are missing them, we can go back and look at it and make sure everything is working right.
Okay. Thanks, Rama. And then Brenda, we had a patient that was in the tornadoes in Mayfield, Kentucky. I asked if his 3-month SOC could be extended because he was not able to make his appointment, and I never heard anything back. This is Catherine, Brenda, and yes, if you can just send me an email and let me know how much extension you need for that 3-month follow-up, and we can see how we can help. Tiandra asked, is there a way to create an Excel file for patients that includes demographic information along with all of their adverse events and additional variables captured in Intermacs? The current downloadable Excel files are limited to specific data forms.
I'll jump in on this one. Tiandra, you're the site administrator. So if you log into the web-based data entry and go to the same files tab that you would go to get your reports, I upload each quarter some SAS data sets as well as some flat files that you could open up in Excel that I think will give you what you want there. There's one for events, there's one that's a patient level look, there's one that's a device level look, and there's one that's a follow-up level look. But if you go there, if you have questions about any of that, by all means, you can email me. I'll drop my email in the chat.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it. The next question is, they had to take a call and missed the last 10 minutes. Is this being recorded and will it be shared? Yes, the webinars, all the STS webinars are recorded, and they will be including the PowerPoint in the discussion, and they'll be posted on the sts.org website. And I believe if you can search for Intermacs webinars, you can pull it up there. And the next question from Melissa, thank you for the work on these new options, great improvements, and I look forward to seeing how the team can use these tools to drive quality improvement. Thank you, Melissa. I know UAB's worked really hard on these tools, and I'm really excited to see how the sites can utilize them also. My doctor is also looking for reports like asked by Tiandra. So I think, John, you talked about the data sets that you send should have all of that information packaged up nicely.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then our next question by Sheila, should the Kaplan-Meier tool be available now? Outcome analytics section currently shows as not available.
Yeah, Catherine. Yeah, the outcome analytics section, we can look at. We can actually get the. It should, when we enable it, we enable it for all active sites and all active users at the sites. But for some reason, if it is not, then we can make sure we can look back at it, and then if it is not available, we can make sure it's turned on.
Okay. Okay. So Sheila, you should have access to this, but like Rama said, they might need to turn something off and then turn it back on for you. So
Could you put
definitely
your the site code in the chat, and I'll take a look at it too.
think it's OHCC, Ryan. And then from Curtis, the Intermacs dashboards looks like it will be a fantastic tool for improving outcomes. Are there any updates on beginning of PDMax dashboard? Well, Curtis, that's a great question, and it's a popular question. Where the task force is looking into this, and STS and the Intermacs and PDMax task force are looking into this. So we'll let you know what can be done for PDMax, because you're correct, it is a fantastic tool. And Bill again said new fields corresponding to renal dysfunction events are not showing up in the live data download spreadsheets. Where are these located?
So Bill, we had that issue recently. So renal is actually available as a separate item on the form download. So it should be available as a separate, like you have other adverse events like infection and bleeding. It should show up as a separate entry in that list. So we have a pending fix for that, where it will add renal to that list, and as soon as that is done, you should see the list for renal, where you can download the data and see the dates.
Yes, Bill, this is us. This is because we, renal dysfunction now has a separate form now. And so frequently when we have the version upgrades, to get all of those into the live data download spreadsheets, there's just a little lag period because there is a lot of checking that has to go on. And John can attest to that in the team. Just a lot of checks and balances before we can add it to the live data download. So it should be there shortly. I would think by the end of the month.
Yes, Catherine, yes, for sure.
And then there's a site code for Sheila. Well, I know, both Rama and Ryan did encourage everyone to see scenarios, and to send in scenarios. So if you do have any scenarios you'd like them to go over on the next webinar, we can even briefly go over those on the webinar next week if Rama and Ryan are available. If you would like, so you can send them to myself or Maceo or any one of these emails that you're seeing on your screen. I believe we had 2 questions, Ryan, from the when we sent out the email announcement, and I think Maceo may have forwarded those to you. I don't know if you want to go over those today.
Let me pull that up. I'm checking my email right now. Let's see.
And while he's checking, speaking of emailing us about scenarios for the dashboard in Kaplan-Meier, you can, if you have any specific topics you would like to discuss on the webinars, the user group webinar especially, you can definitely feel free to email one of us and let us know some topics or anything that would be helpful to review. I know February, the Intermacs user group webinar will actually be dedicated to PDMax. So, but we do again have the Intermacs user group webinar next Wednesday at 1 p.m. Central Time.
Okay, I found these questions. Do you want me to respond to those?
Yeah, if you would like to, if you're
Sure.
able to, or
So the first question was from Kelly Britton, and it's essentially the same question that Rama just asked, just answered, of noticing that looking for the fields in the data download related to the renal dysfunction events. So it sounded like the fix for that would be, what was the timeline again, you said, Rama, for getting that?
Yeah, end of month.
End of the month. Okay, yeah. So that should be organized from the end of the month. And feel free to reach out to us again if you have trouble, Kelly. And I'm pulling up question number 2.
okay.
It's also from Kelly, similar item. I'll just send her a quick email,
Okay.
Catherine, just because if we have an example, it'll be easier for us to
Sure.
specifically respond to that example. So I'll do that.
Okay. Well, I believe we do not have any more questions. If anyone from the audience would like to send in any questions in the next minute or so, go ahead and do so. If not, Carol, is there anything that you would like to add or any updates that I may have forgotten?
Oh, I think the dashboard's wonderful. You did a great job with the webinar, and just thank you to UAB and to you, Catherine, for all of your help with that being successful. I think that's wonderful.
And thank you for your support, Carol, and thank you, Leanne, for being on the webinar today. Don't think we're going to get any more questions, but I appreciate everyone logging on today, and I hope to see everyone or talk to everyone next Wednesday at 1 p.m. Central Time for the Intermacs User Group webinar. And don't forget to email us those scenarios or any other topics you'd like to be discussed, because we'd like to hear from you.
Great.
And I hope everyone has a great day. And UAB, especially a big thanks goes out to everyone from UAB on this call. I know y'all have done a lot of hard work. And so thank you very much.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you.
Thanks.
Great
Thanks, everyone.